Okay, hey everyone, welcome back for the second edition of our Tool Time Tuesday in video format. Today I'm going to be talking about our Durston rolling mill, or any rolling mill for that matter, but mine is a Durston. And I want to talk about how to create a really good impression on your metals. Alright, so what I have here are multiple pieces of metal. I've already annealed these, and that's a topic for another day, but I have gone through the process of annealing, cleaning, and making certain that they are nice and soft and ready to take on an impression. If you do this with metal that is too hard, then you won't get a very good impression. So you want to start off with annealed metal for this. I have any number of different materials that you can use, and today I'm going to be using a little bit of just regular black screen that you would find in a window screen. I have 100 grit sandpaper. I also have just an aluminum perforated sheet that I'll be using, and then some scrapbook paper that has been textured already. First thing I want to do is make certain that my materials wrap around the piece of metal that I'm going to be texturing. Now, it doesn't matter really the gauge of the metal that you're using. Probably don't want to go too thin. It won't pick up as much of the texture. In this case, I'm going to use the black screen, and I want the impression on both sides. So I've cut my piece of screen enough that it will cover both sides if I fold this over. But I also have quite a bit of overlap here. You want to have some, but not too much. So in this case, I'm just going to take my pair of scissors and cut a little bit of it off. You can see that I've still left a little bit on either side of the metal here. One of the things that I want to do to make certain that I get a good impression is I'm going to pad my piece, even though I've got my item surrounding it that's going to create the texture. You don't want to ever just put that right through your mill. Sometimes you can if, let's say, I have some textured plates out of copper or brass. That I can go ahead and sandwich my material and run it right through the mill, but not always a good idea, particularly if you have something that's like a steel texture plate, or in the case of some of these others, I have sandpaper. One of the things that I'm going to do is just pad this with some paper towel. Now, I've heard that the best kind of paper towel that you can use is that really flat brown stuff that you usually find in public restrooms, kind of the cheaper stuff. It doesn't have any kind of padding to it whatsoever, but I don't have any of that, and a regular paper towel will work. Here I have 3 sections, so I've just cut off a long piece of this, and I want to wrap this around, or at least have enough to wrap around so that I have 3 layers on either side. So you want to be able to turn your piece 6 times. Now, I don't want to do this to this piece quite yet because I have not set my roll or my roller depth yet. But just to kind of show you what I was doing before, here's my 3 pieces of paper towel, and I'm just going to figure out how big my piece is, use that kind of as a gauge, and then I'll cut the paper towel so that I have my really long piece. One of the things that's kind of hard to try to figure out is at what level do you set your rollers for the depth of your piece. If you make your rollers too close together, you're going to get a fabulous impression. However, you are going to stretch and distort your piece and change the gauge of your metal that you're doing your impression on. So one of the things that I like to do is come in here, I'll put my metal in until I can start to roll this through. You don't want to go all the way, and what you want to do is roll it through just a little bit, pull it out, come back and check it. If you've got your impression a little bit on here, not all the way, you don't want a nice clean dark impression because that means that your rollers are too tight. If your piece goes right through with no contact at all, then obviously your piece or your rollers are too far apart. This is about what I want. So at this point, I'm going to then wrap my piece in the paper towel. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, I've kind of got this in here. I don't want that, so I'm going to take the time here, stretch that out just a little bit so that we get a nice clean impression and nothing from the paper towel itself. So I'll fix that a little bit. And now I'm ready to put this through. I do also want to make certain that my paper towel wraps around my entire piece and hangs off the edges and that my metal's not sticking out. Otherwise, I won't get the pressure that I need from the mill. At this point, I'm ready to go ahead and start to roll. I'm going to push this in until my piece becomes tight, and then I'm going to roll this through the mill. You should be able to do this without too much effort. If you have too much effort, then it also means that you are stretching out your material and maybe thinning it out in an undesirable way. Now my piece has gone through the mill. In this case, I don't actually have a whole lot of distortion. Sometimes, particularly if you push your metal too tightly through or your rollers are too tight, you might get some distortion or your metal might fold or begin to curl. I'll go ahead and unwrap my piece here and see that the paper towel did its job well. Go ahead and remove my screen, and there is my textured metal. Our next piece I'm going to do with the 100 Grit Sandpaper. Same concept. I've gone ahead and wrapped my piece entirely around with the sandpaper, so I should get a nice rich texture on both sides of my piece. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I don't need more than that, so I can cut the remaining paper towel off and again come back in and roll this through my mill. Before I roll this though, I want to unwrap this from the paper towel and set my rollers. Alright, so I've set my rollers, adjusted those, and now I'm ready to go ahead and pass this through the mill. And again, you can see that my paper towel is now nice and smooth and smushed. You can see as I pull it apart, it sticks together very well. And I can pull my piece out now, and I've picked up that texture from the sandpaper. Now a lot of people will ask, is there something like this that you can use multiple times? This actually still has a texture to it. This one you would be able to use again. However, I can't vouch for the integrity of it. It may just disintegrate as you're using it. So for me, typically it's just one swipe through and that's it. Same type of thing with the screen. Now, other things that we do have, like I said before, and I pointed out, I've got the aluminum perforated sheet here. This one I'll probably get one swipe out of. The holes will distort and become more oval. Alright, so how do we adjust our roller depth or the roller width here? What I like to do is I'll bring my piece in and I will go ahead and bring it in and kind of run it through. Now, it's really tight at this point. I'm not going to roll this hard because I don't want to put too much pressure on my piece and begin to roll it. And what I'm going to do now is adjust this. If I turn to the right, then my rollers come together on my mill. If I go to the left, then they twist apart. What I like to do is come in and I want to keep rolling and adjusting until I get that feel where I can just bring my metal through just barely. So here I would be able to take my metal through much easier than I had been before. And at that point I can go ahead and test, and there's a bit of my impression. Probably a little bit more than I really wanted, but at least I know I'm at the right roller depth. So I'm going to now put my piece back together, and I'm ready to go ahead and wrap it up in the paper towel. I guess it helps to use one that I'm going to get enough out of. So lay it on here on my paper towel. Again, my piece that is going to be the texturizing piece is going to be wider than the piece that I'm texturing. If it's less than, then you're going to have an edge where you don't have any texture. So there's 3, 4, 5, and 6. You want to, like I said, have 3 layers on either side of this, and then I can go ahead and cut off the remainder. At this point, I'm ready again. Put it into the mill, and now roll this through. Again, I can see that my metal has been textured. And there's my texture. This is the piece of metal that I was talking about, and you can see this one's not too bad, but there is some distortion that has happened here. We have that curvature that's happened with going through the mill, and then we also have the circles becoming more oval-like. But it also picked up a texture from the paper towel as well, so this may actually be another piece of metal that you can use in your jewelry or your artwork. Now, there are a lot of different materials that you can use. We've talked about some of the metal, some of the scrapbook paper. Other things that you can do are very, very inexpensive and a lot of fun. I find that a manila folder has fabulous texture, and you can actually get some that are even more textured than these, the yellow manila folders. I have some that are purple that have a little bit more grain to them. All you would need to do with this is just take a little Fisker knife, and you can go ahead and cut your design in. It would be helpful if you have a nice hard cutting board. In this case, I just have this little cardboard piece, and it's a little too thin, or a little too flimsy rather, but you get the idea. So you can come in with your X-Acto knife and just cut out different designs and get that in around your metal, and it'll roll, and you've got endless possibilities with that. Other items that you can use: lace, materials, plastic, like bubble wrap, baggies, aluminum foil. Other things that I've used are rice paper and vellum paper. All of them give you beautiful textures. One last texture that I'm going to do is with some scrapbook paper. In this case, it's the same piece of scrapbook paper, however it had 2 different textures on it, and I know it's kind of hard to see in the video because it's a very fine texture, and it's just, it's going to be really difficult with the color of the paper as well. But what I wanted to do was texture one side with one of them, and then texture the other with the other texture. And the same process happens. I'm going to go ahead and come in here and see if I can run this through the mill. At this point, you can see that this is way too far apart. So I'll come back in and tighten up by a 1/4 turn, and again, still too tight. Another 1/4 turn, still, or too loose rather. Another 1/4 turn, and that's going to go ahead and give us a little bit more. So I'll back it up just a little bit, and I'll back it up a little bit more. There we go. Again, I'll check to see if I've got the beginning of my texture. Right along the edge, I do. So last time, take our paper towel. There's one. This one's going to be a little trickier because we're trying to work with 3 different layers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Cut off that little bit of the paper towel and run it through the mill. And once again, we can look at our piece now. Again, this one is going to be much more difficult to actually see this texture because it was a very fine one from the paper, but it is there. So that's how you do a texture on the rolling mill without distorting your piece and without stretching it out too much. Thank you.